The Amazing World of Gumball has become not only one of Cartoon Network's most popular shows, but one of the most popular shows in cartoons, period. The show gained wide popularity for not only its quirky and unique characters, but also for its interesting art style. For the most part, the show thrived off of its upbeat nature and zany comedy, and it's why a lot of people have grown to love the show. Now, with that being said, the internet has a way of taking something bright and upbeat and attaches a dark and eerie spin on it in some way, shape, or form. Hence, you get a series of images like this. What were once areas from the show that were filled with bright and colorful characters have now been filled with nothing. Empty, eerie spaces are filled with a dark void of loneliness. While on the surface you may look at it as just images of the show's locations, by the very nature of them, Gumball associates itself with an internet phenomenon that takes its world and no longer depicts it as amazing. It now is depicted as dark, desolate, and most of all, liminal. The images you see are part of an internet phenomenon known as liminal space. Now, there are many definitions in which people can define liminal space, but for the context in which this video is made, we're going to focus on the aesthetic version of it. Liminal spaces are the subject of an internet aesthetic that portrays empty or abandoned places that appear eerie, foreboding, and oftentimes surreal. Now, while all that sounds fancy, what's a more practical definition? Well, have you ever been inside a mall while it was empty? A grocery store that was about to close? A playground during the nighttime? A hotel during its slow hours? Heck, have you ever been home alone? Well, if you've experienced any of these things, then you very well have been inside a liminal space. While you physically may not have been to these exact places, liminal spaces tend to strike a chord with people not only because of its eerie nature, but more importantly for its sense of familiarity. Looking at some of these images myself, I know I haven't been to these places ever, but when I look at them, it's like my brain is tricking me to believe I have, as if I'm looking back at old childhood photos, and I believe this aspect is what triggers the nostalgia factor of liminal spaces. The fact that they can make you feel like you've been to these places without actually being there is astonishing. Now, you may be like, okay Murray, what does the Amazing World of Gumball, a Cartoon Network show, have to do with some internet genre about empty places? Well, believe it or not, there's an episode of Gumball out there that may have referenced or at least played with the idea of liminal space, and it's an episode that I believe holds interesting similarities with the widely popular YouTube series. And it's one that I absolutely want to talk about in this video. But for what it's worth, this video will loosely cover some topics such as depression and overall unsettling content, so viewer discretion is advised. The episode of Gumball that's of note is the 37th one of Season 3, titled The Downer. The episode begins with Gumball's family all frantically banging on his door to talk to him. Gumball emphatically shouts no through the doors, which stops everyone's frantic behavior and replaces it with concern. His family approaches his bed only to be presented with a really grouchy face and a Gumball that's not in the best of moods. Gumball's family tries to console him in a somewhat sarcastic manner, to the point where Gumball snaps and says the following:
I don't care! Darn it! Why can't you just go away and leave me in peace?
The very second Gumball opens his eyes, he realizes that something has happened. He looks around his room and sees what was occupied with relatives have now vanished. Going into the living room, Gumball yells out to his family to see if they're hiding from him, but then comes to the conclusion that his wish of being completely alone may have come true, which he actually takes a delight in. To begin his time of peace and quiet, he plays with Legos and pretends to be a giant monster and terrorizes the Lego city. Definitely very Gumball of him to do. He then attempts to cheer himself up by watching TV, which proves to be ineffective, but more comically begins to sing a song after because, who doesn't love an old-fashioned song, right? Now, a little note about the song Gumball sings is named Life Can Make You Smile. Now, supposedly the song is a parody of Happy by Pharrell Williams, and honestly sounds a lot like it if you were to hear it. But anywho, as the song progresses, you would think that it would get more happy and upbeat, but it actually gets more aggressive and chaotic, with Gumball becoming more dissatisfied. Now note, this is the second thing that fails to cheer Gumball up. He then proceeds to make dinner for what would have been his actual family, but because of their absence, he begins to imitate all of their personalities. However, Gumball is still in a bad mood, and you can mark this as fail number 3. Now, this is the part of the episode that not only takes a turn for the worse, but also ties everything together with the entire idea behind liminal space. Still in a bad mood, Gumball storms out the house kicking and flailing until he stops in the middle of the street and comes to another realization. The wish he had of those around him vanishing has reached further beyond just his home, because the entire population of Elmore is gone. Hence, you get scenes like this. What was once a city full of its inhabitants and filled with life has now become desolate and eerie. It is now quite apparent that something definitely is not right. Gumball moments ago went from flailing his entire body in an uncontrolled fit to now carefully treading the city of Elmore in genuine fear. After traveling through Elmore for what seemed like hours, Gumball stops in a parking lot and begins to brainstorm possible reasons for the entire city's absence. While doing this, Gumball's bad mood begins to overtake his behavior, and he starts to come at odds with it. The negative emotions that he has can no longer be controlled at his will, because now, all of that negativity has manifested itself beyond just an emotion. It has become Gumball's reality. Everything around Gumball shifts into a negative parody of it. Joyful Burger is now Misery Burger. Captain Crud, obviously a parody of Captain Crunch. Heck, even the economy collapses. But the crazy thing about it all is, even with everything that has happened up until this point, this is not the most sinister thing to happen, because in actuality, Gumball is not alone.
What is that?
What seems like out of nowhere, a mysterious, dark, and shadowy mist begins to consume all of Elmore. Seeing all of this, Gumball without question bolts out of there and tries to escape the unknown threat. He returns back to his house in the backyard and is forced to take the threat head on. The black mist quickly shows Gumball that he is in real danger, and honestly made him into a really cool YouTube thumbnail. But I digress. Without any other option available, Gumball rushes back into his house while the black mist continues to consume everything in it. Just like earlier, the black mist turns what it comes into contact with into a negative and dark version of itself, as seen with the portraits. Gumball has nowhere left to escape to, and all he is left to do is witness as the dark shadowy substance overtakes what is presumably the rest of Elmore, and leaves Gumball in a dark abyss, all by himself, as he had wished. Now, before I get to the finale of the episode, I alluded to earlier that this episode may have had some interesting similarities to another series that is connected to liminal space. If you've caught on to the overall theme of the episode and some of its plot details, then you know what I'm about to say. After watching this episode several times over, I can't help but connect it to the
Sound? Camera?
Rolling.
All right, and action.
Hello? Is someone there? The Backrooms is an online urban legend that was originally posted on a 4chan thread in 2019. This image would be the centerpiece for what would give liminal spaces more than just a nostalgia feel to it, but also a horror feel to it. While the idea and aesthetic of liminal spaces have been around for a long time, this image would put a face to the name. Thus, the boom in backroom games, as well as other liminal space images and threads, would emerge. As if the genre couldn't get any bigger though, a YouTuber by the name of Kane Pixels would take the idea of the backrooms and revolutionize it, taking the liminal space genre that was already given a face to the name and gave it life. Making it more than just an image, it would actually be made into a CGI rendered adaptation. On January 7th, 2022, Kane would upload a short film to YouTube that would showcase his vision of what the backroom genre should be. And must I say, it is truly a piece of work. Everything from its VHS style, lighting, sound, and overall production is something a content creator such as myself can appreciate. With some other plot details that people argue isn't canon, but we're not really going to dive deep into that. I'm not going to dive too deep into the lore behind the Backrooms found footage, considering several episodes were made that expanded the lore, but to quickly summarize the first and most popular episode, episode 1, it starts off as a VHS tape of what seems to be a couple of teens filming a short film. After being instructed to film a wide shot of the scene, the cameraman, who was known as Kane Pints, falls backwards through the ground and somehow descends into the backrooms. A sense of fear and confusion can be heard in Kane's voice as he ventures through the mysterious maze-like backrooms while still trying to make sense of it all. As he explores, he eventually encounters a creature who wants to dangle his bones into tapioca pudding, but Kane runs off. Kane discovers different areas of the backrooms, and you really get a sense of how deep the maze-like area goes, and the deeper he explores, more questions begin to be asked faster than they can be answered. After cutting several corners and traversing through other mysterious areas, Kane once again arrives back where he started, and once again has to avoid the mysterious creature. Finding what appears to be a pit in the floor and possibly a death drop, Kane is eventually caught by the creature and presumably killed, which causes the camera to drop into the pit that leads back into the real world. And that's how the first film ends. Now, with all that being said, how does it tie into this particular episode of Gumball? Well, for one, I want to say I am in no way saying Gumball took inspiration from the Backrooms, or vice versa, considering both medias were made almost a decade apart from each other. But what I am saying is that both hold strikingly similar details, and honestly, they're pretty easy to spot. Both episodes start off with friends or family appearing, then they unknowingly vanish. The settings that the protagonists are in fit the liminal space criteria, which creates a sense of worry and dread. Both protagonists have no idea how they got into their situation in the first place. Both have some dark unknown threat try to tell them about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, and both endings seem to imply the protagonist's demise. Well, at least that is the case for Kane Pints. Gumball's fate takes a much more different direction. Segueing back to the ending of the episode, the black mist completely engulfs Gumball's world, and he is left inside a black void of nothingness. As a last resort, Gumball tries to recollect what his father Richard had told him about getting back into the swing of things when he's feeling down. This gives Gumball the idea to do the wheelbarrow of all things, which makes Darwin appear and alters the effects that the black mist created. Gumball's family finally returns and with great joy tells him that he's glad it was all in his head. Or was it? I say this because the episode then reveals a pretty interesting truth. Gumball's family, and all of Elmore, never vanished. The entire city was never empty. The black mist never existed. And yes, Gumball was pinching his dad's nipples. So yeah. At least Gumball's family decides to save him the embarrassment by not telling him. I mean, that's a plus. But yeah, that's how the episode ends. Now, there's a lot to unpack here, and where do I even start? Well, for starters, I don't know whether to laugh at this ending or be genuinely frightened, because Gumball is basically suffering from schizophrenia. And it kind of begs the question, would you rather live in a world all alone, or make yourself think that you're living in a world all alone? I mean, of course the episode had to take a more comedic approach in the end, considering it is on Cartoon Network, but that doesn't change the story that was told before. Regardless of the ending and certain things not existing in the end, the episode still is dark in nature, and I think the wiki for this episode reveals some real interesting facts about it that reinforce that. Apparently the creator of Gumball, Ben Baquelet, said the episode went under several rewrites because the early draft of it was deemed excessively dark. If this is true, I find it interesting because, as I said, the episode is still dark regardless of its comedy. But it does make me wonder, what were the early drafts like? Was it Gumball really being trapped in an abyss of his own depression? Was it his family really disappearing? I really do wonder that. What's also interesting are the several titles that this episode is known as in several languages other than just the downer. In Portuguese and Polish, it's known as the depression. Bulgarian and Turkish refer to it as the bad mood. Dutch as the grumpy, Italian as alone in the world, and Vietnamese as the anger. It is interesting to see how different languages interpret what the title of the episode is, and as I said, it definitely reinforces the much darker tone that this episode may have been trying to convey. Whether it's anger, loneliness, depression, or just a bad mood. What's most interesting of all here, though, is that for Gumball, it's just an unfortunate story that I think we can all relate to. Have you ever had a bad day, or woke up grumpy, didn't want to talk to anybody, wanted to be left alone? I mean, we've all been there. And maybe we said some things to a loved one that we maybe didn't mean, and we're just caught up in the moment with emotion. We're just willing to say anything if it means we're able to be alone. And this is where I think Gumball's dilemma sends a very strong message that we've all heard many of times over in our lives. Be careful what you wish for. But we all know deep down, this is not what most people truly wish for. They don't wish for people to vanish permanently, and they don't wish to live alone. And yeah, it could be all just one big joke in Gumball's head, but considering the effects that depression can have on one's mental state, the fact that Gumball was basically hallucinating is a very real symptom of depression. Gumball wanted to be alone so bad that he manifested a world to himself. And in the end, I think he got more than what he asked for. Not only that, he created a world that I think tied into another genre of horror that feeds into the whole idea behind loneliness and isolation. It's only then when he's given these things that this is not what he wanted at all. At least to this extent. And yes, while the ending was kind of abrupt and comedic for the sake of Cartoon Network, I think in the end shared another message that I want to wrap this video up with. There's nothing wrong with wanting some alone time, wanting peace of mind, wanting a space where you can decompress from the stresses of life. Heck, that's what makes liminal spaces calming in a way. Looking at areas where it seems like no one is present can be eerie, but it also can have a weird sense of beauty to it and can be a place of sanctuary. Just look at the pool rooms. I would love to be there for a day. But anywho, being left alone is fine, but being left to loneliness is not. Never relish in the idea of being lonely. Never relish in the idea of being completely cut off from your friends and family. Because one day, and I pray that day happens later rather than sooner, all you'll be left with are the memories that you shared with them, good or bad. You'll be left remembering what they said or did that impacted you greatly. Heck, and you might even be like Gumball in this scenario. You might sit at the dinner table trying to imitate what they were like, since they're not actually there. And I'm not saying bad times won't happen. I'm not saying depressing moments or days won't come where you feel like being alone. I'm saying appreciate the good times now while they're here. Because unlike Gumball, we can't just imagine it all in our head and somehow burst back into reality as if nothing happened. This is real life, with real life problems. And in the end, You need those around you to get you through it. Then again though, it could all just be in your head and you need to stop being a Debbie Downer and just get some fresh air. But what do you guys think about this episode? Was it significant to you? Do you see the similarities that it has to Liminal Spaces and possibly the Backrooms? I mean, this is the same show that collabed with another popular online horror series in Don't Hug Me, I'm Scared. I'd love to know what you guys think down below. If you enjoyed the VHS style of this video, then you might like another VHS styled video here. Thank you so much for watching. Make sure you hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. I very much appreciate you guys. I'll see you in the next video. And don't hate, motivate, and God bless.